Craig Finn is the distinctive voice and wordsmith for the band The Hold Steady. Before that, Craig was in the popular Minneapolis band Lifter Puller, and before that, he was a kid in Edina, Minnesota, who loved the Replacements. Craig and his band are on the bill for the Replacements' upcoming Midway Stadium homecoming show. I recently spoke with him about being a music fan, songwriting, fronting a successful rock band, and playing on the same stage as his idols. Craig, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Your band, The Hold Steady, is playing at Midway Stadium in St. Paul this week, and also on the bill, The Replacements, who are playing their first hometown show in more than 20 years. I was hoping you could tell me what your reaction was when you found out that your band would be on the bill with the band that you grew up loving.
Yeah, I mean, The Replacements are my all-time favorite band, so I just was thrilled to be able to be a part of it, and, I think it's if we weren't playing, I'd still be there. I'd make it that I was there to see the show. So it's nice that we could play too. But I mean, it's really an honor. The Replacements are such a big part of my own musical thing. And growing up in Minneapolis, so many people's favorite band. And yeah, it's incredible to be included. I don't think I could invent a bill that I'd rather be a part of.
Craig, what was it about the Replacements that got to you when you were a kid finding your way in Edina?
Well, I think that they were very believable. I mean, I've said in a lot of interviews that I never knew anyone who looked like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, but I knew a lot of people who kind of looked like the Replacements. And it was just cool and empowering to know that there's this great rock and roll band right in our hometown. And I think lyrically, Westerberg just was such a great songwriter, and some of the lyrics there was like the big guitar stuff, but they could also be so vulnerable and so sensitive, and I think that's maybe kind of the key to their power and their lasting legacy.
I'm glad you brought that up. You're on record as saying Let It Be is your favorite album, or certainly one of them, and Unsatisfied is on there, and I happen to think that combines perfectly the vulnerability of Paul Westerberg, but he's also sounds like he's got a little bit of anger on that one as well, and that kind of is part of the band's legacy throughout all the records that they made.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if you look at that side of the record, it's also got a song called Gary's Got a Boner. So it's like it shows that it can be juvenile at 1 second and then just have this very heart-wrenching vulnerable side to them, and I think the two together is what makes them such an amazing band.
And Craig, you mentioned the songwriting and the lyrics, and I'm wondering what kind of an impact that had on you as a kid, and then in later life when you started to be a musician writing your own songs, did it have an impact on you then as well?
Well, I think lyrically, I think one of the impacts it had on me when I first heard The Replacements, I got Let It Be when I was in 8th grade, and that is a tough age. And I wasn't quite 16, but a song like 16 Blue, it was a song, your age is the hardest age, everything drags and drags. Those are songs that I don't know, made you feel like you weren't alone. And I think a friend of mine said something the other day that The Replacements are a band people tend to have a very personal connection to them. They listen to them and think the Replacements are just talking to them. And these shows are so amazing because all of a sudden there's tens of thousands of people who are singing along, and it's all of a sudden a very communal experience.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I'm thinking, and I'm a fan also, and I'm really looking forward to seeing The Hold Steady and the Replacements in St. Paul this week. As much as fans are eager to have a chance to see their favorite band in the Replacements, it's also an opportunity for us to show them our gratitude.
Absolutely, and I think they're, I just saw them in Boston the other day, and it felt like that was really getting through, but it was, I think there's sort of a beauty in it, and it's very emotional to hear these songs after 20 years, I bet you there will be more than a few tears shed at the show Saturday.
I think you're right. And now, being on the bill with the band that you have so much affection for, is that intimidating in any way? Do you plan for that show differently than you would plan for others?
I don't know. I guess I just want it to go well. I think that's more how I experience it than being intimidated. It's more like I just want this show I want us to play well, and I want us to be really good on that night, because I want to, I want to be great, and it to be all around great evening.
Now, I didn't start to appreciate the Replacements and the lyrical genius of Paul Westerberg until I was probably in high school or college. So you must have been a pretty intuitive and smart eighth grader to follow a band that early on.
I was really into music, and I think it was really exceptional that they were from my hometown for me. That this was happening just a few miles away from where I was growing up. But I think in some ways I got lucky. And those are just incredible songs that I think it'd be hard not to fall in love with.
Is there something about what the Replacements do or did that you try to incorporate it all into your being in a rock band or performing live?
I mean, in some ways, it's always been our point. Or one of the things when we started the band was we wanted to be sort of a smart rock band. We wanted to have good lyrics that said something that worked on, as on their own, but coupled with big, huge guitars and, loud rock. And, kind of the idea that rock and roll could be smart and it could convey a wealth, a lot of different emotions. And that's what we've tried to do, and I think that's what the Replacements always succeeded in doing.
Craig, I would say that you seem to be very detail-oriented in your songwriting, and the stories that you tell are pretty vivid. So I'm wondering, are you a natural storyteller? Is that something you do in your regular life, or is that something that you work extra hard at in your songwriting?
No, I'm kind of the guy who tells stories, like, at the bar or, around a table. I tend to tell stories. Some people say too much.
Well, I want to congratulate you on maintaining the high standard for the Hold Steady that you've had since you guys began. I just got Teeth Dreams. I've been listening to it, and it's a great record. I in particular like Wait a While, and I want to know how you respond and react after you're in the studio and you record a song like that, which I think has some pretty obvious benefits in terms of the riff and the breaks and catchy chorus. How do you feel after you record a song like that?
Well, the way you record is kind of in pieces, so you kind of live with it a little bit a day at a time. And then, when you finally get back from mixing, there's a real rush when you finally hear it as it's finished. But at the same time, you spend a lot of time with it. So if you're not sick of it, usually I give myself a little bit, like a week before I listen to something, try to give myself a break. But then if it's good, it really does kind of give you chills. And if it's, you look back at all the work that went into it, from the writing and the rehearsing to the recording, and it's a great feeling.
Craig, you're a pretty established rock star at this point, if I can use the term rock star and not make you blush too much.
But certainly a rock musician.
Yeah, and well, you've had success and you've gotten positive feedback, but I'm wondering, this far into the game, and you've been playing, I know Lifter Puller, I think, started here in Minnesota in the 90s, and you were probably playing even before that. Is there something about your singing, playing, songwriting that you have any insecurity about that stuck with you over all these years? And if so, what is that?
I think my singing voice is certainly limited and maybe divisive to some people. I kind of talk through more things, and I'm fine with it. It's like that's what I do. But sometimes you'll get in situations with other musicians. They'll be like, "Hey, can you hit this harmony?" And it's like, well, not very easily. I can't. But you also adjust to what you do and make your own style. And I've tried to make my own style that works with what I've got.
For all the Minnesota music fans out there, could you maybe share any particular memories that you may have of the local music scene that was thriving when you were in Lifter Puller here in the early 90s?
I think the big thing for me in the late 90s in the Lifter Puller was the ease at which the genres within Minneapolis at the time, anyways, worked together. And we would play oftentimes with the band Dillinger 4, who was way more of a punk band than we were, but also with Atmosphere, the now very famous hip-hop act. No one batted an eyelash. It just seemed natural. We were all friends, and we did stuff together. And I think when I moved away from Minneapolis, I realized how unusual it was for the genres to kind of move fluidly like that, artists from different genres. And that's a real testament to just how supportive the music scene is in Minneapolis. It is really actually a scene that gives local bands a ton of support.
And I think that what you're describing is also true of the 80s in Minneapolis when the Replacements and Husker Du and Soul Asylum were out. We also had Prince, who was just coming to notoriety and maybe a little bit beyond those bands in popularity at that time. Did you have other Minneapolis bands from that era that were influential on you as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things for me was just like, I would get the Village Voice. My dad would get it for me when he went to New York on business, and I would look. And, I remember seeing in the year-end review, like there was one year where the Replacements and Husker Du were like two of the top bands in the Pass and Job poll, which is a big critical acclaim. And I was like, wow, you don't always feel like you're living in the middle, the epicenter of something when you're in Minneapolis. But at the time, I think in the 80s, musically on a national level, it really was, between Prince and the Replacements and Husker Du and Sound and, the time, things like that. It really was, there was really a sense that something was happening in town.
Since you are a respected and well-known musician who's been at it for a while, again, I'm wondering, do you still have as much of an appreciation and get as much joy out of music as you did when you were a kid? And how is it different for you these days now that you're kind of taking a peek behind the curtain and you're part of the process?
Well, I get to see a lot of music, so probably not as high as a percentage just makes me go crazy. Because I just see a lot, but every year there's a few things that just make me feel like I'm 15 again, and there's things that have really excited me, and I still like listening to a lot of new music and go see shows and all that.
And Craig, you're playing with the Replacements coming up this week. You've played with Springsteen in the past. Talk about playing with your idols. Where do you go from there?
There isn't much left at this point, to be totally honest. I think the Replacements are a big one. I've met a lot of my heroes, and I've been fortunate enough that none of them have disappointed me. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I think there aren't many bands that mean anywhere near as much to me. So I think this might be the big one.
All right, Craig. Well, I'm going to wrap things up here, but I want to ask if you have any particular message to the fans that are going to be out at St. Paul's Midway Stadium on Saturday to see you guys and to see the Replacements.
I just hope everyone has a good time, and I think it's going to be a really special thing to be a part of. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I am as well, Craig. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
It.